The training arena of Velcor Prime glowed with blue fire. Thousands of alien soldiers stood in a circle, their armored bodies glinting under the twin suns. At the center stood General Zira Velcor, tall, silver-skinned, her golden eyes sharp as blades. Her voice echoed across the metal floor. "Bring in the human," she ordered. The gates opened and Captain Aaron Hale walked in, a man in torn combat gear, calm and steady. His boots echoed with each step. He looked around at the alien soldiers, all twice his size, and smiled slightly. Zira's lips curved into a mocking grin. "This is the human our council wants me to mate with?" she asked loudly. Laughter filled the air. Pathetic, Aaron didn't reply. He stood straight, his eyes never leaving hers. Something about his stillness made the laughter fade. Zira stepped closer. "On my world, a mate must be strong," she said coldly. "If you are weak, I will end this here." Aaron raised an eyebrow. "Then test me, General. But be sure you're ready for the result." Gasps rippled through the crowd. No one had ever spoken to Zira like that. Her jaw tightened, but her heart beat faster. "Fine," she said. "Release the Voraxes." The metal gates roared open and 3 monstrous beasts rushed into the arena, creatures with glowing spines and blade-like tails. Their roars shook the air. Every alien soldier stepped back, but Aaron didn't move. He simply cracked his neck, muttering, "All right then." The first beast lunged. Aaron dodged under its claws, rolled and struck its leg with a broken metal rod he'd picked up from the ground. Sparks flew, the beast screamed, and the crowd shouted in surprise. Zira leaned forward, eyes narrowing. The human was fast. The second beast swung its tail, slamming into the arena wall. Dust exploded everywhere. When it cleared, Aaron was gone. Then suddenly he jumped from behind, landing on its back, gripping one of its glowing spines. The creature twisted wildly, but Aaron held on, driving a sharp shard into its neck. Blue blood sprayed the ground. The soldiers roared in disbelief. This wasn't a test anymore. It was survival. Zira felt something strange stir inside her. Not anger, not pride. Curiosity. The third beast, the largest, charged straight at Aaron. Instead of running, he sprinted toward it. At the last second, he slid under its chest, stabbing upward into its heart. The creature stumbled, roared once, and fell still. The arena fell silent. Aaron stood among the 3 dead beasts, his chest rising and falling, his face calm. He looked up at Zira. "Was that enough of a test?" he asked. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she jumped down from the balcony, landing a few feet away from him. Her golden eyes met his blue ones. "You fight like no creature I've seen," she said softly. "No armor, no fear." He wiped a line of blood from his cheek. "Maybe fear is useful to those who don't understand death," her soldiers murmured, confused, even impressed. Zira stepped closer, close enough to see the scars on his face. "Why did you not kill the first beast when you had the chance?" she asked. "I wanted it to learn fear too," Aaron said. "Even monsters should know how it feels." Her heart skipped a beat. No warrior on Velcor had ever spoken like that. For the first time, Zira didn't know what to say. She had wanted to break him, to prove humans were weak. But instead, something inside her cracked. The crowd began to chant the human's name, Aaron. Aaron. Zira turned away before anyone could see her expression. "Enough," she said sharply. "The test is complete." But as she walked back toward the command bridge, her hands trembled slightly. Because deep inside, she knew. The test wasn't over. It had just begun. And this time, it was her heart that was on trial. The arena smelled of blood and metal. The 3 beasts Aaron had defeated still lay there, motionless, their blue blood soaking into the sand. The alien crowd had already left, murmuring about the human who fought like a storm. But General Zira Velcor hadn't left. She stood in the shadows above, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the man still in the ring. Aaron Hale sat on one of the fallen beasts, wiping dirt from his hands. The lights dimmed around him, the silence heavy. He looked up, and though he couldn't see her through the haze, he knew she was watching. "Still judging me, General?" he said softly to himself. "I hope you found what you were looking for." Zira's expression hardened. She told herself she didn't care, that this was all a test of strength, discipline, and control. But something about the human's calmness unsettled her. He didn't fight to prove anything. He fought to survive, to protect, and somehow that made him stronger than most of her soldiers. She turned away before anyone saw the flicker of admiration in her eyes. Send him to debrief, she ordered, and make sure he's ready for the next test. Hours later, Aaron stood in the cold corridor outside the command room. 2 alien guards flanked him, their expressions unreadable. The doors opened with a deep metallic hum. Zira was there, no longer in her battle armor but in an officer's uniform of silver and black. Her golden eyes glowed faintly under the light. "Captain Hale," she said, her tone sharp. "Your combat display was acceptable." Aaron smiled faintly. "I'll try to disappoint you next time." The guards shifted, surprised by his tone. Zyra's brow arched, but instead of anger, a ghost of amusement crossed her face. "You have no idea how close you came to dying," she said. "I've been close before," Aaron replied. "It's starting to feel like home." For a moment, silence stretched between them. Heavy. Charged. Zyra walked slowly around him, her boots echoing on the metal floor. "You fight like no one from your species," she said. "You don't rely on strength. You use patience, instinct." Why? Aaron met her gaze. "Because strength breaks. Fear lies, but instinct keeps you alive." Zyra stopped behind him, her voice low. "You sound more like a warrior than most of my command." He turned, meeting her eyes. "Maybe your command stopped remembering what war feels like." The room went silent. The guards looked shocked, expecting her to strike him for such boldness. But instead Zyra smiled. A small, dangerous smile. "You think you understand war, human?" she asked quietly. "I understand loss," Aaron said. "That's the same thing." The words hit harder than any weapon. For the first time, Zyra didn't know what to say. She dismissed the guards with a wave of her hand. When they were alone, she asked, "Tell me, Captain Hale, what did you lose?" Aaron's eyes darkened. "My crew, my world, and maybe a part of myself I'll never get back." She watched him closely, the flicker of pain behind his calm. "Then why keep fighting?" He looked up. "Because if I stop, the people I lost stop mattering." Zyra's breath caught. It was such a human thing to say, and yet so powerful. She turned away, hiding the emotion in her face. "You are reckless," she muttered. "And dangerous," he smirked. "You forgot interesting." That made her laugh. Just once, quietly, like she wasn't supposed to. It startled her more than any weapon ever had. "Perhaps," she said softly, "you are not as simple as you look." Aaron tilted his head. "Neither are you, General." Zyra's eyes narrowed, but she couldn't hide the faint warmth behind them. She turned toward the exit. "Rest while you can, Captain." "Tomorrow the test continues," he called after her. "You sure it's still me being tested?" She stopped for a heartbeat, then walked away without answering. The door closed behind her and Aaron smiled faintly. He didn't need her to answer. He already knew. The test had changed, and this time it was her heart on the line. The great hall of Velcor Command shimmered under silver light. Long tables lined the floor, filled with alien officers dressed in formal armor. The air smelled of roasted herbs and ozone, the scent of victory. General Zyra Velcor sat at the head, her golden eyes cold and unreadable. Tonight was not celebration, it was evaluation. At the far end, Captain Aaron Hale walked in wearing a clean uniform, freshly pressed but simple. He looked completely out of place among the tall alien nobles. Still, he carried himself with quiet confidence as if he'd been here before. Zyra's voice broke the silence. "Captain Hale," she said, her tone half amusement, half challenge. "You fought well in the arena, but fighting and leading are different things. Tonight I will see which one you are." Aaron nodded. "Then I'll do my best not to disappoint dinner." A few officers laughed before quickly silencing themselves under Zyra's glare. She gestured for him to sit across from her. The table between them felt like a battlefield, filled with strange dishes, glowing fruit, shimmering liquids, and something that looked suspiciously alive. Aaron studied them with raised brows. "Eat," Zyra said. "Or are humans too delicate?" Aaron smiled slightly. "I've eaten worse on Earth. Once in boot camp we had soup made from recycled air filters." Zyra blinked. "That sounds disgusting." "It was," Aaron replied, taking a bite of a glowing fruit. "This tastes better." For the first time, Zyra almost smiled. The soldiers around them exchanged glances. Their mighty general was smiling. She leaned forward. "Tell me, human, why do you fight? For glory? For survival? Or for something else?" Aaron's tone softened. "I fight because someone has to. Not for medals, not for flags. For the people who can't? Her expression hardened. Weakness, she said automatically. A soldier fights to win, not to protect. Aaron met her gaze calmly. You're wrong. Protecting someone is harder than winning. Winning is just pride. Protecting is purpose. The hall went quiet. Zyra's jaw clenched. Not because she was angry, but because his words hit something deep inside her. He was testing her now. Zyra picked up her drink, pretending not to care. Humans speak like poets, she said, though her voice was softer. Maybe that's why your wars never end, Aaron shrugged. Maybe. But sometimes a poet survives where a general dies. That made her laugh, a sharp, surprised sound that echoed through the hall. The alien officers froze, unsure if they should laugh too. Zyra covered her mouth, shaking her head. You are reckless with words. And you're reckless with assumptions, Aaron said. Her golden eyes flashed, but there was amusement behind them now. Careful, human. You sound like you're challenging your general. He smiled. Maybe I am. Silence fell again, heavy but electric. The air between them felt alive. Then the floor trembled. Alarms blared across the command hall. Lights turned red. An officer rushed in, shouting, General! The western docks are under attack. Enemy ships inbound. Zyra stood instantly, her playful mood vanishing. Prepare all fighters! Evacuate the civilians. Aaron was already moving toward the door. Where do you want me? Zyra grabbed his arm. You will stay here. This is not your fight. He looked back at her, his voice calm but firm. You called it a test, General. Then let's finish it together. She hesitated for just a second, long enough for another explosion to shake the walls. Then she nodded. Fine, human. Let's see what you can do beyond words. They ran side by side through the burning corridors, soldiers clearing the way as the sound of battle thundered above. Zyra's golden armor reflected the flames. Aaron's uniform was already dusted with smoke. As they reached the hangar, Zyra caught him looking at her. What? She snapped, half breathless. Aaron grinned. You're enjoying this? Her lips twitched, half smile, half snarl. Maybe I am. Outside, the night sky burned red with enemy fire. Ships exploded, alarms screamed, and Zyra's warship engines roared to life. And somewhere in the chaos, a strange truth settled in her chest. She was no longer testing the human. She was fighting beside him, and that terrified her more than any battle ever had. The sky above Velcor Prime was on fire. Giant warships hung like wounded beasts, their hulls glowing red from plasma hits. Smoke and debris rained across the city as anti-air cannons boomed. Inside the chaos, General Zyra Velcor stood at the command deck, her voice steady and sharp. Shields at 40%. Divert all power to the western flank, she shouted. Her officers scrambled to obey, their hands shaking. The enemy fleet, the Tarkon Dominion, had attacked with brutal precision. No one expected them to strike so deep inside Velcor territory. The blast doors opened and Captain Aaron Hale entered, covered in dust, his eyes calm and clear. You said you wanted to see what I can do, he said. Well, here's my test, Zyra glared. You shouldn't be here, human. Aaron walked to the holotable, studying the flashing red markers of enemy ships. You're fighting like they expect you to. Straight lines, formation tactics. Tarkons eat that alive. You need chaos, Zyra's brow furrowed. Chaos, he nodded. Let me command the ground teams. I'll buy you time. Her pride rose to protest, but then she saw something in his eyes. Calm, certain, unshakable. The same look he wore when he fought the arena beasts. She finally said, Fine, don't die, human, he grinned. No promises. Aaron sprinted toward the launch bay, grabbing a fallen alien rifle along the way. Outside, the hangar roared with noise, explosions, shouts, and the metallic hiss of mechs powering up. He climbed into a damaged hover transport, slammed the controls, and took off low across the burning city. On the ground, Tarkon shock troopers poured through the smoke, their armor black and glowing with red veins. Civilians screamed and scattered. Aaron's transport crashed through a blockade, skidding sideways. He jumped out and started barking orders. Form a V-line. You cover the medics! You move civilians behind the wrecks! The alien soldiers hesitated. A human was giving orders. But then they saw him grab a wounded Velcor warrior, drag him behind cover, and fire a perfect shot that dropped 3 Tarkons in a row. Follow him, someone yelled. And they did. Up in the command deck, Zyra watched through the hollow feed as Aaron led the defense like he'd been born on Velcor soil. He didn't just fight. He read the battlefield, predicting enemy moves before they happened. Every time a Tarkon squad advanced, he countered it. Every time her soldiers broke, he pulled them back together. Zyra's heart pounded. She had seen great warriors, but never one who fought like this. Calm inside chaos, fierce without rage. An officer shouted, "General, enemy cruisers are descending." "They'll destroy the city." Zyra slammed her fist onto the console. "No, prepare the Ironclaw cannon." "But General, it's untested, and I said fire it." The ship rumbled. Energy built up across its spine until a massive beam of blue plasma shot into the sky, splitting clouds and tearing through 2 Tarkon ships in one hit. The entire room shook. Zyra leaned on the console, panting. "Report. Direct hit," said her officer. "Targets destroyed." But before she could breathe, a new explosion rocked the tower. The enemy had fired back. The command deck shattered in flames and debris. When she opened her eyes, she was on the floor, smoke filling her lungs. The ceiling had collapsed. Her arm was bleeding. Then she heard a voice through the static of her comms. "Zyra, can you hear me?" "Aaron," her chest tightened. "Aaron, the tower, I see it." "Hold on." Outside, through the broken glass, she saw a battered transport rising through the fire, engines whining. Aaron was piloting it straight toward the ruined deck. The craft slammed against the tower, breaking open a path. Aaron leapt through the flames, grabbed Zyra's arm, and pulled her out. She stared at him, half in shock. "You came back?" He smiled faintly. "I told you, General, this is our test." Together, they ran through the collapsing hall, explosions chasing them. When they finally reached safety on the lower deck, Zyra stopped and turned to him. "You saved me," she said quietly. "You saved my city." He shook his head. "No, I just did what you would have done." Zyra looked at him, this small, stubborn human who fought like fire itself. And for the first time in her life, her voice trembled. "Maybe you're not the one being tested," she whispered. He smiled. "Maybe we both are." Outside, the burning sky began to clear. The enemy ships retreated. And as the light of dawn touched the battlefield, Zyra Velcor realized the war wasn't the only thing that had changed that night. Something had changed inside her. The war was over. The skies above Velcor Prime were calm again. No fire, no smoke, only the soft hum of rebuilding ships. But inside General Zyra Velcor's chest, a different kind of storm had begun. She stood on the balcony of the command tower, staring at the horizon. The wind carried the faint scent of plasma and steel. Down below, workers rebuilt the city that Aaron Hale had saved. The human was a hero now. The Alien Council praised him. Her soldiers respected him, but Zyra, she feared him. Not because he was dangerous, but because he made her feel something she couldn't control. She used to be fearless. The galaxy had known her as the Iron Star of Velcor. She had faced monsters, assassins, and wars without blinking. But this quiet, stubborn human with a tired smile, he had walked into her life and shattered her balance. And that scared her more than any battle ever had. That night, she couldn't sleep. She sat at her desk, scrolling through old combat logs, trying to distract herself. Then she opened Aaron's file. Captain Aaron Hale, Earth Expeditionary Force, mission status, deceased in records. Reason: lost with unit during evacuation of Delta Ridge. She frowned. Deceased? She opened the mission report. The truth hit her like a punch. Aaron had saved an alien refugee convoy during the battle. His own crew was wiped out. He'd been listed as dead because no one believed a human could survive there. He had lived in silence. Alone. And he never told anyone. Zyra leaned back, her throat tight. She whispered, "You fool. You saved us long before I ever met you." The next morning, she went to the training arena. Aaron was there teaching young alien cadets. His voice was calm, encouraging, never harsh. "Don't fight your fear," he told them. "Understand it. Then it can't control you." Zyra stood in the shadows, watching. The way he moved, the way he smiled at his students. He carried no arrogance, no pride. Only purpose. When he finally noticed her, he wiped sweat from his forehead and grinned. "Morning, General. Come to test me again?" Her voice was colder than she intended. "You disobeyed direct orders in the battle. You could have been killed." He shrugged lightly. "So could you. But we didn't die. That's what matters." Her jaw tightened. You're reckless, he smiled. Maybe. But you didn't seem to mind when I pulled you out of a collapsing tower. Zyra's chest tightened. She turned away. Watch your tone, human, he laughed softly. You keep calling me that like it's an insult. I think you mean something else now. For a second, she froze, then walked away before he could see the warmth rising in her cheeks. That night, the dreams came. She saw the battle again, and fire, screams, the tower falling. But this time Aaron didn't make it. In her dream, she reached for him through smoke, but he vanished. She woke with a gasp, her heart pounding, her hands trembling. Fear, real fear. Not of death, but of losing him. The next day she avoided him completely. Every time she heard his name, her pulse quickened. Every time someone mentioned his heroism, she felt pride and pain mix like poison. Finally, she escaped to the observation deck, where the stars looked close enough to touch. She stood there for hours, silent. Then she heard footsteps. Aaron's voice came from behind. You're hiding again. She didn't turn. Generals don't hide. Then what are you doing here? She finally faced him, her golden eyes softer than he'd ever seen. I'm trying to understand something. He stepped closer. What's that? She hesitated. Her voice dropped. You risked your life without orders. You saved my city. You saved me. Why? He looked straight into her eyes. Because you're worth saving. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them hummed with something raw and dangerous. Zyra finally whispered, You're not supposed to say things like that, Captain. He smiled gently. Then court-martial me later. She turned away, but her voice cracked. You don't understand. I can't afford to feel this. Aaron's tone softened. Maybe that's the real test, General. Not how you fight, but how you feel. Zyra closed her eyes, breath trembling. The strongest woman in the galaxy, afraid not of war but of love. And for the first time she realized she couldn't win this battle with orders or guns. Because her heart had already surrendered. The stars above Velcor Prime shimmered peacefully, but in the dark corners of the galaxy, hatred still burned. The Tarkhan Dominion, humiliated by their defeat, whispered of revenge. And their plan began not with an army, but with a message. The message was marked urgent and sent to Captain Aaron Hale's console. Distress signal detected. Possible survivors from the Delta Ridge mission. Aaron froze. Delta Ridge. The place where he had lost everything, his crew, his friends, his life on record. For a long time he just stared at the screen. Then quietly he said, If there's even one of them alive. He didn't report it to General Zyra Velcor. He just left a short note on his table. Be back soon. Probably nothing. But Zyra found the note only hours later, after he was already gone. Her blood ran cold. She recognized the coordinates. A dead zone. No signals, no life. A perfect place for an ambush. Her fists tightened. You idiot, she hissed under her breath. You walked into a trap. Aaron's small shuttle broke through a field of drifting metal, the remains of long-forgotten ships. Everything was silent except for the faint beeping of his scanner. Come on, he muttered. If anyone's here, give me something. The screen flickered on a faint life sign. He followed it, heart racing. But as his shuttle neared a wrecked cruiser, a red light flashed across his cockpit. Lock-on detected. Ah, hell. The first missile hit his rear thruster. The ship spun violently. Aaron gritted his teeth, slammed the emergency eject, and crashed hard onto the frozen surface of a ruined moon. He rolled to his feet, coughing, weapon drawn. But a dozen Tarkhan hunters were already surrounding him. Their leader, a tall figure in black armor, stepped forward. So this is the human who embarrassed our armies, the Tarkhan sneered. The pet of the Velcor general. Aaron wiped blood from his lip. You came all this way just to meet me? I'm flattered, the Tarkhan smiled. You'll serve as bait. She'll come for you. And when she does, we'll kill her too. Aaron spat at the ground. You don't know her, the Tarkhan laughed. Oh, we do. Pride makes her predictable. Back on Velcor Prime, Zyra stormed into the hangar bay. Ready my warship now. Her second-in-command hesitated. General, the Council forbids action outside secured territory. Zyra's eyes burned gold. Then they can court-martial me later. The crew didn't dare argue. Within minutes, her ship, the Iron Star, roared out of orbit, engines blazing toward the coordinates of Aaron's last signal. Inside the cockpit, Zyra's mind was a storm. Anger, fear, guilt. She was the one who had taught him bravery, and now that same bravery might get him killed. When the ruined moon appeared in the viewport, she whispered, "Hold on, human." Aaron was on his knees, arms bound, surrounded by Tarkon soldiers. The leader lifted his blade. "Any last words, human?" Aaron smirked weakly. "Yeah, you should look up." The sky exploded. A blazing blue warship broke through the clouds like a falling star. Energy blasts tore through the Tarkon ranks. Dust and fire filled the air. And through the smoke, Sira Velkor descended, armor cracked, eyes blazing. Every step shaking the ground, she charged forward, blades igniting, cutting through enemies with brutal precision. The Tarkon leader swung at her, but she caught his wrist and broke it in one motion. When the last soldier fell, Zira dropped to Aaron's side, cutting his binds. He looked up at her with a tired grin. "You came." She glared at him, her voice trembling. "You reckless fool. You could have died." He smiled softly. "So could you." Zira's anger cracked. She grabbed his face with both hands. "Don't you understand? I can't lose you." For a moment, neither spoke. The battlefield was silent except for their ragged breaths. Aaron looked into her golden eyes. "Then don't." Her hands trembled. "You're impossible," he whispered. "You like that." Zira exhaled sharply, then pulled him close and kissed him. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate, fierce, full of everything she'd tried to bury. When they finally pulled apart, she whispered against his lips, "You win, human." "I was never ready for this." Aaron smiled faintly. "That makes two of us." Above them, the Iron Star hovered silently, its engines glowing blue against the endless night. Zira stood, pulling Aaron to his feet. "Next time," she said, her voice steady again, "you tell me before you run off to die." He chuckled. "Yes, ma'am," she smirked. "Good, because if you disobey again..." She leaned close, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I'll come for you, but I won't save you next time." Aaron grinned. "You say that now?" Her eyes softened. "We'll see." Together they walked toward the rising light of her ship. Two warriors bound not by duty anymore, but by something far more dangerous. Love. The dawn over Velkor Prime burned soft gold across the horizon. For the first time in months, the sky was clear. No ships, no fire, no smoke. Just peace. But for General Zira Velkor, peace was harder to face than war. She stood before the Grand Council, her armor polished but scarred, her heart heavier than any blade she had ever carried. The great chamber glowed with blue light as alien leaders watched from high platforms, their eyes cold and expectant. At the center of the hall stood Captain Aaron Hale, dressed in his worn Earth uniform, his hands behind his back. Calm as ever, one of the counselors hissed, "General Velkor, you disobeyed our orders. You took a warship beyond the border. You risked hundreds of lives for a human." The words echoed like thunder. Zira lifted her chin. "I did." Gasps filled the chamber. The counselor's voice rose. "You admit this crime?" "Yes," Zira said firmly. "Because it wasn't a crime and it was a choice. The right one." She turned toward Aaron, her golden eyes steady. "That human saved my world. He saved your soldiers. He fought beside us when your fleets fled. If loyalty is a crime, then I am guilty." For a long, heavy moment, no one spoke. The counselors looked at each other, their faces unreadable. Then slowly, the oldest among them leaned forward. "And what of this human? Why should our people trust him?" Aaron stepped forward. His voice was calm but carried across the entire hall. "You shouldn't, not yet. Trust isn't given, it's earned. But I'll keep fighting for it, even if it takes a lifetime." There was silence, deep, absolute silence. Then, one by one, the soldiers in the hall began to rise. Alien warriors who had fought beside him pressed their fists to their chests in salute. Soon the entire chamber filled with the sound, a chorus of armor and respect. The old counselor nodded slowly. "Then perhaps, Captain Hale, you have already begun to earn it." Zira exhaled, relief flooding through her chest. Later, as the twin suns rose over the rebuilt city, Zira and Aaron stood on the observation deck of the Iron Star. Below them, the world glimmered, a mix of human and alien banners fluttering together. Aaron smiled faintly. "You know, for a planet that once wanted to kill me, this view isn't bad." Zira gave him a sideways glance. "Don't get too comfortable, human. Some of my officers still think you're my weakness." He smirked. "And what do you think?" Zyra turned toward him, her golden eyes soft now. I think maybe you're my strength. For a moment, they simply stood there, the silence warm and alive. Aaron broke it with a quiet laugh. So what happens now, General? Zyra looked out at the horizon. Now we rebuild. We teach both our worlds that strength isn't about domination, it's about trust. He nodded slowly. You mean another test? She smiled faintly. The hardest one yet. That evening, a grand ceremony filled the city square. Thousands gathered. Soldiers, workers, civilians, all waiting. The banners of two worlds waved side by side. When Zyra stepped onto the stage, the crowd went silent. She wore no helmet this time, no heavy armor. Only her command uniform, shining with medals earned and scars unhidden. She raised her voice. My people, once I believed fear made us strong. That control was victory. But I was wrong. A single human taught me that courage is not in power. It's in compassion. She turned to Aaron, who stood beside her. He came to us as an outsider. Today he stands as my equal. The crowd erupted into cheers louder than any victory roar. Aaron looked shocked, but she smiled. A real smile, open and proud. Then she reached out her hand. Captain Hale of Earth, she said clearly, from this day forward you are not my test subject. You are my partner. Aaron took her hand as the twin suns flared behind them. He leaned closer and whispered, You started the test, General. Zyra smiled back. And you finished it, human. The people of two worlds watched as the warrior and the human stood side by side, not as conqueror and captive, but as equals. The sky above them shimmered with unity, not war. Later that night, alone beneath the quiet stars, Zyra looked at him and whispered the truth she'd never said aloud. I wanted to test your heart. Aaron, I didn't know it would change mine. He smiled softly. That's what makes us human, General. Zyra tilted her head, her voice like a promise. Then maybe, I'm learning. And as the night wind brushed past them, carrying the sound of laughter and peace across the shining city, the galaxy itself seemed to exhale, as if the test, after all this time, had finally ended, but for them, it was only the beginning.